Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for tuning in for this live session today. This is Shrikanth Shetty, Executive Vice President with HCL Technologies, and I've been joined by some fantastic winners of Stevie's Awards from the past few years. Nicole and Kathy won the Stevie's for Women in Business, and Mrunal won it for the excellence in transforming businesses. Again, great reconnecting with you. And again, backstage, it was a lovely conversation and catching up with all of you over the journeys that we all had over the past couple of years. And what I'm sure our viewers are eager to listen to is over the next 60 minutes, I think we have this wonderful opportunity to learn from all of you. I mean, you have been pathbreakers in your own way, out-of-box thinkers, and would love to hear from you your perspective of what has made you successful in business and what has contributed to your success, and what's that secret sauce that makes you what you are. And again, I'm truly humbled and privileged to be hosting this session today. And I'm sure we would have loved to do this in person. But again, given the pandemic, I know, this is a distinguished panel we have of healthcare experts. I know the world is looking at you to kind of help us solve this and get past this pandemic as quickly as possible. So again, fingers crossed for that. But again, we'll have to do with this digital avatar. And I would love to hear your views on this topic today. And before I get to the questions, what I'd love to do is, and Kathy, I'll start with you. Short introduction and say hello to our viewers before I get started with the questions. Kathy, yours.
Sure. Yeah, so Kathy Clawson, I'm the Commercial Services Alliances Director at Veeva.
Thank you, Kathy. Nicole?
Hi, Nicole Quash. I'm an IT Director at Covance by Labcorp, and I'm responsible for clinical applications.
Thank you, Nicole. Mrunal, you want to go next?
Sure. Mrunal Saraiya. I'm the Senior Director at Johnson & Johnson. I'm responsible for data, automation, and advanced technologies.
Thank you, Kathy, Nicole, and Mrunal. Again, thank you so much for the introductions. And again, interesting to see the wide variety of leadership positions that you have within the healthcare industry. And Kathy, I'll start with you. And again, goes back to the earlier conversation we were having about as people rise through their careers. And as I was mentioning, everyone is eager to know what is the recipe for success. How do you put it all together? How do you get stuff done? And what I would request today to do is, if you could share a little bit of your philosophy that shaped your thinking, and what is that winner's mindset that has helped you steer your career over the past couple of decades?
Sure. Thanks, Shrikanth. So, yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is the authenticity and integrity. So I try to do everything with that in mind. It's making sure that when I'm making decisions, I'm being open and honest with folks. I also have a philosophy of, I look for the people that are smart and work hard. So I think that, those folks are the people that you could bring along with you, and they can do anything and do great things. The authenticity as well, I find, and I've worked with you in the past as well, that even having the hard conversations are critically important, because at the end of the day, if you either have the hard conversations now or you put it off and it becomes even harder in the future. So those are some of my philosophies.
Awesome. Great point you mentioned about Kathy. And again, having that authentic conversation and what is the right time to do it. And again, what I wanted to share is when you are having that authentic conversation, having that difficult conversation, what are those one or two things that you keep in mind while you're doing that?
Well, I harken back to a situation where, I had to put someone on a performance review. And, it was one of those, at the end of the day, that person couldn't have been satisfied in the work that they were doing either. So not only, it was a hard conversation for me, but at the end of the day, it was the right thing for the company at the time, but also for that person long-term, because they were, it was not a good fit. So I always try to have that empathy while I'm having those authentic conversations. So I'm making sure I'm listening to them, understanding where their concerns are, and also adjusting along the way. So perhaps there's feedback that I didn't understand or that I need to adjust as well. So that flexibility is important.
Wonderful points. Empathy is definitely something that I think is critical to getting the authentic conversation going and kind of be a positive discussion between everyone engaged, right? Great points, Kathy. Nicole, if I could ask you the same questions, and a question which I asked Kathy, I mean, in terms of your secret sauce for success, the winner's mindset, can you share your perspective on this?
Sure. And honestly, it's some of it is similar to Kathy's as well. With the authenticity, you have to lead as your true self and build that relationship of trust, because people know if you're not being genuine, and that is a big part of leadership and being able to drive things forward. Understand the challenges in the business and what their barriers are, and work with them to help remove roadblocks. Don't assume that, like for me in technology, you can't assume that I just know what the business needs. I have to take that time and actually understand what their challenges are and work with them. And the third thing that I would say is networking and partnering. You cannot be successful alone. It's not a solo mission. You definitely need to connect with others to help drive forward success.
Thank you, Nicole. The point that you mentioned around networking, and especially in the socially distanced world that we live in today. Share some thoughts about how have you done it in the past? I mean, I know we'll get out of this very soon, but again, if you have thoughts to share about how you were able to do that successfully in the past, and maybe what you're doing right now in the current situation to network.
In the past, I will say it was a lot easier. We didn't have the situation with COVID where everybody needed to be separate. So in the past, I went to different forums, different events that were in the industry, some of which were even hosted by HCL. I've gone to internally. You have happy hours, you have just events and meetings and social activities. Now it's been a little different. So I've joined a lot of virtual workshops and events, some of which would have been in person. I've actually, from personal connections, I've actually had a few virtual happy hours with people I wanted to connect with, just to kind of have some time to unwind and maybe have a glass of wine while we talk over Zoom. So it's been a little bit of a challenge, but it's been trying to take those steps to stay connected, and in meetings when I can have the video on so that you have a little bit of face-to-face interaction and still feel like you're having that networking opportunity.
Thanks for sharing that, Nicole. I mean, absolutely. I mean, who doesn't love sharing a glass of wine over Zoom, right? Moving on to you, Mrunal. I mean, I'll ask you the same question in terms of your recipe for success, and what is the thinking that has steered you through your career? What are the top 2 or 3 things that you keep in mind while you are being successful?
Sure. So I think what's important for me is, as a leader, to have the right culture within the team. I lead a team of technologists in areas that are always a step ahead, be it data and data sciences, be it advanced technologies. And so having the right culture, having a culture where we are allowed to fail fast, take calculated risks. And the key here for my team, and the way we've always looked at things from a leadership standpoint, is at the end of the day, it's all about creating value for the business. So I currently work at J&J. We want to make sure that we are creating value for our doctors, nurses, mothers, and fathers. We touch 1 billion people every single day, and with a vaccine coming out pretty soon, that number will just go north. So it's important to have a winner's mindset within the team to ensure that we're agile, we're driving the right culture, and we're constantly innovating to ensure that we bring the solutions that our business needs to propel forward.
Absolutely. And Mrunal, I mean, you talked about having a team of technologists whom you have to kind of lead and kind of drive them towards innovation, right? What are the best practices that you have seen which has helped you kind of drive innovation within J&J? Can you share some thoughts around that?
Absolutely. I think what's key with innovation is, as a leader, you can't say that you will innovate this particular thing. What you can do as a leader, and should do as a leader, which has worked for us, is create a team and let the team kind of come up with ideas and opportunities within that team. And that is an area we've seen where most of the innovation comes in. And that innovation actually results in a lot more value creation. And I'll give you a good example. One of my team members who might be on the call today created a platform a couple of years back. It was a co-innovation with a startup, in the process of developing and deploying the vaccine and part of the distribution setup. We're using APIs that are cutting short our technology delivery timeline from a couple of months to a couple of weeks. Those are the kind of risks that the team has taken and innovated, and that's truly helped our business.
Absolutely. Wonderful inputs, Mrunal. And taking a slightly different track, I'm sure within your careers, and I think that's true for a lot of us as well. Having mentors is something which is fundamental to, definitely in the early part of our career, help us steer our career in the right direction, give us that helping hand when we need it, and also maybe the kick on the backside when we need it as well, so that we are motivated enough to kind of do what we need to do. Just share your thoughts around the mentors that you had in your career and how they have helped you shape your thought process. And again, Mrunal, if you want to go first, please do.
Sure. So the way I've always looked at mentors is I've always looked at mentors outside my field of work. So I'm a technologist. I've always looked at mentors from finance, from business, from HR. And the reason why I look at it from that perspective is because if I talk to a technologist, it's like talking to a mirror, and the same thoughts and responses come back, right? So it's what I want my mentors to do is challenge me in conventional thinking. And what I've seen very often is when you talk to a finance professional, he or she brings a different perspective to technology versus a technologist would bring. So that's the approach I've taken, and that's worked well for me.
That's very interesting thought, Mrunal, you brought in terms of, have a mentor who's outside your direct field per se. Eager to understand how are you able to recruit these mentors who are directly outside the field of your direct field?
Well, it's a combination of, so I have a family member who's in finance, savvy in technology. So he's a good mentor. You interact with your business partners, and when you see that the business partner is willing to collaborate, you then offline sign them up to be mentors, right? So I think it's a journey in life. I don't think we can quote unquote subscribe to a mentor. As you go towards progress towards your career, you find the right people and you get the mentorship.
Wonderful. Nicole, your thoughts on mentors?
So yeah, for me, mentors have come in many different forms and in different areas. So there have been mentors in the business who are largely, I agree, outside of my own area of expertise, because those are the people who will teach you about different things in the business from a perspective that you may not have. So I totally agree with that. But I've also had mentors who were just not even in the field or in the industry. I look at mentors as people who are a good place to be a sounding board. So they may not understand all the aspects of what I'm dealing with or what I'm talking about, but they have a perspective from the world vision or their vision, their experiences in business that can help me either see things a different way or help me when I'm struggling with a decision. So the mentors I've had in my life have been people who have helped to push me forward. They advise when needed. So not over advise, but when actually needed. And sometimes they just listen, because sometimes just having that someone there to be a sounding board and let you get out the things that you need to say, I've found very beneficial. And I've had many mentors along the way who have done that. And some of those mentors have been for a short period of time, just, a season, and moved on. And there have been other mentors, but I think it's an evolving door. And it's one that's good to have.
It's interesting. Nicole, the point that you brought up, there's a lot of commonality with what Mrunal also said. One is, have mentors who are outside your direct zone of responsibilities and things like that. And also, there is the second theme I'm seeing is there might be people, these mentors change over a period of time. Who was maybe a mentor a couple of years back, might have a different mentor down the line. So Nicole, I'm sure in your current role, you're mentoring your team members as well. What are some of the things that you keep in mind while mentoring them? It's a very difficult role that you have as a mentor as well. How much to push, when to stand back, and when to kind of give them the extra push required.
So that is definitely the area you try to balance. So I actually do mentor people in my team and actually others in the organization that are not in my team. And what I try to do as a mentor is actually listen more than I talk, because sometimes if I start talking too early or I give my opinions or insight, I don't want to sway them from what they were thinking or from coming to their own conclusions. So as a mentor, I do try to listen a lot. And again, when they need something, I try to go with probing questions to say, so what did you think about that? You're telling me about the situation and you're asking maybe what I would do. What would you do differently, or what did you want to do in that situation, or how do you think, just to get them thinking about their own answers instead of subscribing to what, my philosophy might be, which could be the right answer for me, but might not be the right answer for them.
Absolutely. It's essentially helping them think by themselves.
Exactly.
Wonderful, Nicole. Kathy, if I may ask the same question to you now.
Yeah, I mean, I would echo a lot of what Mrunal and Nicole had said. One thing that Nicole actually just said that is something that I like to do is, all right, do you want me to listen or do you want me to help you solution? It's setting that expectation up front, because sometimes someone just wants to get something out and to talk through, and other times they do want your help in solving that. And that's something that I think applies to whether it be professional life or even your home life with your kids or a significant other. The other piece related to mentors, and I think we also mentioned it, is that, it's not just one. I've had many mentors throughout my career. And the one piece of advice I always kind of take to heart, remind myself, and also give is, I'm always looking for the 2 or 3 people that I want to emulate as leaders, career paths, et cetera. And that I always want to have the 2 or 3 people behind me that can take my job, because I'm not a successful manager if I'm not helping develop my team and grow the team.
Understood. If there was the best advice you got from a mentor, what would that be, Kathy?
I think it was that the look for the 2 to 3 people, that look for the folks behind you to take your job. And the last point of that, I think, is critical, because oftentimes you'll see leaders that are afraid to pull their people up and to kind of replace themselves. But, if we want to grow in our careers, if we want to do new things, we have to be able to have people that can take on the responsibilities that we own. And if we're not growing our people, then we're failing as leaders.
Absolutely. Great thought, Kathy. And Mrunal and Nicole, if you can share maybe the best advice that you got from your mentors.
A good advice, maybe as an example, was one of my mentors always says that look at every issue with the glass half full and not glass half empty, right? You could go below the line very easily, go negative very easily, but there's always a positive aspect to it. So, looking at the problem half glass full enables you to be not only have a positive conversation, but at the end of the day, take your team along and have the right outcome.
Awesome.
And for me, I would say the best advice I got was to, one, continue to learn about different things and educate yourself in different areas so that you don't stop growing and don't just accept the status quo and stay there. So I would say that's the best advice I've gotten from a mentor.
But in fact, Nicole, the point that you mentioned about, keep learning. That's something which we follow in HCL very, very strongly. Our motto, our CEO is very passionate about this. He keeps, there's this Alvin Toffler quote that he keeps saying, learn, relearn, and unlearn, relearn is what is the cycle that we should be always in. What is current today will not be current tomorrow. So you have to kind of keep yourself updated. Great thoughts. And I'm sure. Being in the positions that we are, we have made mistakes as well. Not every road is strewn with petals, but there have been the thorns as well. So, talk a little bit about maybe some of the mistakes, errors that have happened in your career, and how did you correct it? Some thoughts around that.
Yeah, so making mistakes, I think, sometimes it's not having enough confidence in yourself. So not being willing to speak up when you know that you can do a job and you let someone else take that role. I always, it's funny, it's 20 plus years ago, but I still distinctly remember having the conversation where I was doing contracts management work, and they will, the consultant at the time wanted to move me over to do accounts management, and I was like, "But I've never done that before." And he looked at me and said, "Just translate it. You can do it. You can move that forward." And that one sentence, 20 years later, I still remember that as a way to kick me to take chances where maybe I wouldn't in the past. I think that's something that's a mistake that we often make, is just not allowing yourself to take those chances. For example, when you and I first met, I was doing contract negotiations, and I had never done that before in my life, but I was able to apply all of my lessons learned to move that forward. And someone else might have said, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to go do something else that I'm more comfortable with.
Wonderful, Kathy. I mean, I should have known that you didn't, you were new to it. I mean, you came out as a pro, believe me. Nicole, if I may ask you the same question in terms of those errors, I mean, how did you course correct?
I want to say, well, first of all, lots of errors, because you learn and grow from those errors. But I want to say earlier in my career, and I'm going to say when I was just introducing myself to leadership or getting introduced, it was thinking I needed to know everything about everybody's job to an intimate level of detail. And it was a challenge at first, because when you first become a leader, you want to be successful, you want to get it right. And you sometimes could get distracted thinking, well, I need to know how they do this. I need to direct that they do it exactly the way I would do. And that was something that quickly I learned was not a way of working and would not work for me, and just learn to trust the knowledge of the team that you have and work with them to build them and help them succeed, rather than feeling like you need to do your job and parts of their job as well. So that was an early leadership lesson and mistake, when I first went into leadership.
Nicole, is there a framework that you had in mind? I mean, you are depending on your team for a lot of what needs to get done. How did you develop that confidence that this is going the right direction? Any thoughts there?
Honestly, it came from actually getting to know the team and know their skills and competencies, and to rely on them. So actually, you can't know what people can do if you don't, one, give them a chance to do things, and two, you follow up, but you get to know them as you're working with them, as you're building that team. And sometimes you might see something in them that they don't even see in themselves yet. And you say, hey, I'm going to give you this assignment. And to Kathy's point earlier about sometimes having that fear or not having that confidence to move forward, as a leader, you can help inspire that. And I've had the opportunity to do that with people, where I said, hey, I want you to take on this. And they're like, well, I haven't done that before. It's like, no, you're going to be fine. I'm going to be here to help you and support you. But this is something that you're ready for. So it's looking for that, but you can't do that without knowing the team that works for you or that supports you.
It boils down to trusting the team and kind of creating a safety net for them in case they fail, because I think that's the biggest fear everyone has. What happens if I fail? And if you create that safety net, it just becomes a zone where they can really perform and outperform too.
Yeah, an opportunity to learn. So.
Absolutely. Good. Mrunal, hurdles, issues, how did you course correct?
So I think we all have to acknowledge that there will be failures, right? Life's not perfect. The same applies at work. What we believe in and what I believe in and tell all my team members is it's not the failure that defines us. It's how we manage the failure that defines us, right? And the keeping business outcome in mind is very important. Keeping transparency and being accountable is very important. So a training that actually I sponsored within my organization was the OS Principles training. Google it, look it up. It's very good. It's all about being accountable, owning the issue, and then resolving the issue. And once you get to the point where the organization is accountable, you could see the transformation taking place, and you could see that the team is a very high-performing team. As an example, we had a major technology issue where we had a go live that failed, and the team transparently came out and talked about the miss, the risk to the business. We had a transparent conversation with the business leader. We course corrected, and we went live a month later. And there was always a little nervousness when you first have that conversation, but at the end of the day, you want to make sure that your business partners are fully aligned with you, and that's where accountability comes in.
Absolutely. I mean, wonderful thoughts there, Mrunal. Again, the common theme I'm seeing is create a positive environment where even if there is a failure which comes up, I mean, it is treated in a manner where that's not the end of the world, but it is an opportunity for you to kind of correct, and kind of there is ways in which you can learn from it and then proceed further and kind of go to new heights. Great thoughts. And again, I was just, if I were to kind of, and I know we talked about failures, I mean, taking a slightly different route. I mean, I'm sure when we go through our careers, there is always this point of, time when we look back and said that maybe there is this one thing that I could have done differently way back. I mean, early on, or maybe sometime midway through your career. Have you had instances where you thought that, okay, if there was this time machine, if I could step back and make this correction, I would go ahead and do that. Any such instances where you think that you want to do that, and what is it, and what is your advice to maybe the viewers who are listening in right now?
I certainly can go. Two things that come to mind for me. One is work-life balance. So I think that's a hard lesson maybe we learn along the way. So if I went back to my 20-something-year-old self, I would say the work will always be there. The other things may not. So, how do you recognize how to balance that and find that balance? The other thing is actually related to something Nicole said earlier about networking. And that's something that I did not take seriously. I was very successful in my career. I kind of moved fluidly from one to another. And then, I was faced about a year and a half ago, my Takeda bought Shire, my role was eliminated. And I was out looking for a job, and I finally realized, like, my network was not, I knew a lot of people, but it wasn't a strong network. So it didn't take a lot of time investing in that network. I didn't have people that were advocating for me across the industry, short of those who knew me immediately. So that's something that I kind of highlight what Nicole said and kind of amplify that as a lesson learned. I wish I would have picked someone once a month to go talk to kind of keep my network fresh.
Understood. So, Kathy, on the first point, what are some things that you do now to drive that work-life balance? Again, being in the jobs that we are, and especially during, nowadays, where I think the demarcation between work and life is like really not there. What is it? How do you do it?
Something simple as, like, on my iPhone, my first page is personal stuff. When I swipe to the side, the next page is my work stuff. So, like, I don't see the unread notifications at night. That's like, I have to check in and check my work and see my work email and clear that. It also helps that I have a tenacious 6-year-old that takes up a lot of my time. But I recognize that, like, me being on the phone is not being present with him, and back to I only have this time with him being 6 and this year old and spending that time with him. So it's like consciously shutting off and saying, I'm not going to be there. And it's also vacation, right? Vacation is precious. And I make sure I tell folks that I don't expect you to work over vacation. Vacation is for you to reset. And when you come back, you're going to have more energy, be recharged, be able to kind of dive into issues in a fresh new way that you maybe couldn't have if you were online working half the time.
Absolutely. I'm sure there are a lot of viewers out there who want to be a part of your team now. Nicole, if I were to ask you the same question in terms of, if you had the reset button, what would you reset?
That is a great question. I think I would have been a little bit more intentional in my decisions career-wise. And what I mean by that is, often you get caught up in a cycle of doing, and maybe you get promoted, maybe you keep moving along a certain path, and you kind of just keep moving forward, and you kind of have blinders on. I would have taken a little bit more time to reset and think about the path I wanted to take. I've been in technology and IT for my entire career. I might have actually even taken a step back and taken a role in the business to learn a little bit more of that firsthand directly instead of, just partnering. So I think I would have liked to try to be more intentional instead of just kind of moving fast forward. And I do try to do that now that I'm, at a certain different part in my career. I think about what do I want to do next and what types of things am I truly interested in? What do I want to get involved in? More so than just following a trajectory that's already in front of me.
Yeah, I think the challenge everyone faces is what are you giving up to go in this new direction? I think that's what everyone struggles with, right? I think that's the genesis of this whole thing. So Mrunal, if I were to hand that reset button to you now.
Yeah. So Shrikanth, what you just said is where I would reset. It's all about how much risk do you want to take, and what phase in your career do you want to take risk. For me, being an immigrant to the US, I was very risk averse earlier in the career. I took the safe path, and the safe path ended up being a little longer from a growth trajectory standpoint, right? Nothing wrong with that, but it's just a matter of time, right? So I think if I were to hit the reset button and go back in time, I would take a lot more risk in pursuing areas that were maybe not as comfortable for me at that time from a stability standpoint, but allowed me to become a thought leader and propel myself forward. So again, there is no perfect recipe here. We are all humans. We have pushes and pulls in life, various things going on, personal life, professional life. But if the opportunity does exist, take a little more risk, and that'll give you a lot more dividend.
Wonderful thoughts there. I mean, Kathy, to you, you spoke about the work-life balance, and I think the second theme I'm hearing here is about taking more risks, essentially. Not being happy with where you are. Maybe see if you be a little more risk averse. Take that chance and kind of broaden your horizons. Okay, good. In terms of, I think one theme, and again, maybe taking a slightly different topic here, more in terms of inclusivity and how do we encourage that. I think that's a common theme that is across industries, across geographies. I think all organizations are trying to drive that within their teams. Wanted to hear your thoughts in terms of how do you do that within your teams, and what seems to work, and what are the pitfalls to avoid you? Mrunal, you want to go first on this one?
Sure, I can. So I think if you segment that out, I think we have two challenges in worldwide that are facing us. One is inequity, both in health and education. And the second one is bias, both conscious and unconscious bias. So these are two large challenges that are what I call it impediments to have inclusivity in the organization. So what we're doing in our organization is we've started this very recently is to ensure that we open the doors wider to ensure that we have the most diverse talent pool. We are requiring that every position that gets posted absolutely has a diverse slate of candidates, right? So that's a requirement. So it's not just having a particular type of candidate, meaning a male Caucasian or a male Asian. We have to have a diverse slate of candidates. But what's more important is also the diverse interview panel, because what's the use of having a diverse slate of candidates when the interview panel is not reflective of the candidates, right? So it's that combination that's important. We believe that by doing so, and we've seen that with recent hires, we can be a very inclusive organization. And what's also happened with COVID is leaders have become a lot more empathetic, right? We all understand that we have situations at home. We have to be flexible with our employee pools, and that is also opening up more doors for inclusivity. And I think that'll be a trend that'll follow for the foreseeable future.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think the credo that J&J has, I as kind of leads to a natural progression toward inclusivity within the organization. Nicole, if I were to request you to share your thoughts on this, how can you drive inclusivity? And Mrunal mentioned a very important point about this unconscious bias. How can we get over that?
So unconscious bias, I do see as it's a major challenge in many organizations, because people see the world through the lens that they've been exposed to. So if you've only been exposed to a certain type of person or a certain group of people, that's what you see. That those are the leaders that you see. Those are the people that you can relate to and that you can connect with. To get past that, though, we have to take a look. It starts with yourself. You kind of have to take a look within and realize that, hey, I have a limited view of the world, which it's not a bad or a good thing. It's just limited. And that in order to get past that, I need to make sure that I'm making a conscious effort to include people. So, for example, if you have a group where you are largely maybe male dominated, what are you doing to bring females into your organization or to make them comfortable? Maybe you reach out to them and say, hey, Susie or Kathy, I see that you're on this, and can you get involved in this project? I'd like to hear your opinion. You might need to solicit some feedback more instead of waiting for somebody to give it to you, particularly if they're not represented in the group, as a large population. Another thing is just to the point of, like J&J, what's happening at J&J, look for that diverse slate of candidates and people when you have opportunities. Don't keep it limited to, hey, I have a great connection with this guy and we know each other, we have the same likes and interests. You don't want to create an army of people who are just like you, because then you get opinions that are just like yours. And that's not necessarily a bad opinion, but it's not a diverse and inclusive opinion. So it's just a matter of looking at, from a leadership perspective, be the change you want to see. And you kind of have to start in your own organization, look in your own backyard and see what areas you can change. And I'm sure there's some all of us can change, but don't look for people. Don't set in your mind that a leader has to look and appear a certain way or has to be just like you. Otherwise, you'll never get there.
Nicole, really powerful comments from your side. The comment that you made about be the change you want to see. I think absolutely, couldn't agree more. If the moment that realization is there, and I think that's what you're kind of hinting at as well, there has to be a self-realization within the organization, within the teams that, yes, diversity is welcome. More opinions are better rather than, kind of copying yourself across the organization. Great thoughts there, Nicole. Kathy, in terms of your thoughts on this topic.
Yeah, so I take it kind of, if you then have a team, maybe more a tactical thing is actually talking to each team member individually to understand what motivates them. So in some cases, public praise, it really brings someone up. In other cases, a note from a senior leader is what takes to keep them engaged and included. The other thing, it kind of tying into a bit of what Nicole said, is amplifying those voices. So if you're looking around the room, and I'm sure Nicole and I have experienced this, where like maybe it's you and another woman, like picking up what she said and saying, yeah, Nicole, I loved what you said about X, Y, and Z. Can we build on that? Or even just having the courage to step in to say, hey, that was actually Nicole's idea. Could we let her explain further what she's thinking about it? So you're making sure you're giving credit to those folks who had the courage to speak up, and that you're thinking about, including everyone. And I think the inclusiveness also runs from when you think about senior leadership down through lower levels in your organization. So Mrunal, you talked about earlier about having kind of a group that comes together for innovation, but you find you're getting much more innovation when you have a really a cross slice of your organization versus all managers.
Mm-hmm. Is there, if I may ask, Kathy, the point you mentioned about you have to hear every point of view from every angle, right? And there are obviously personalities, teams, members people who will be very vociferous, people who will not be that open with the ideas and bringing them to the table. Any best practices that you have seen which encourages your team member, no matter how reticent, how inward focused, or how from a background which is not supposed to, doesn't encourage being outspoken? How do you get that brain trust to kind of contribute to the overall goal?
Yeah, I think if you know someone is maybe not going to speak up in a meeting because they're shy, have a conversation. Hey, here's the agenda that I was going to talk about today. I know you've had ideas here before. Could we talk about those in advance, and I could help support you so that you could raise them in the meeting? So it's a bit of that pre-advocating for someone, making sure that they know they're going to have support in the room. And I've personally done that myself when I may be raising a topic that's, whether it be controversial or more challenging, is I've gone to someone else that I know is going to be in the room and said, here's what I'm thinking. Can you help me, help me with the ideas? How do I present it best? And even getting, if you're sitting in a room of all white males, finding one of those white men to help support your cause and make sure that they're your advocate.
What wonderful thoughts there, Kathy. Nicole, anything from you on this topic? I mean, how do you encourage people to kind of speak up?
That can be a challenge because, to Kathy's point, you kind of have to know the style of the person. There are some people who will dominate the conversation and not stop talking if you let them. Yep. So I do, for me personally, I try to reach out, and sometimes I call on people in a way that makes them feel comfortable. I'll say, hey, you've been quiet there. Is there something you want to add? Or, tell me your thoughts on this. And in worst case, if there's somebody that you just know is not comfortable in a large forum speaking, I will have a one-on-one with them and say, hey, we talked about this in the meeting today. I didn't hear much from you. I just like to meet with you one-on-one and kind of get your thoughts so that we can make sure we're including you and your thoughts and the direction we're going. And sometimes you have to do that. I will say at higher levels of leadership, people do tend to engage a little more, but you do have people who sometimes you have to pull a little bit from them. But if you don't, you miss the opportunity to hear their great ideas, because some people sometimes just need to process what they heard, and they want to take that information and think about it and then collect their thoughts. And sometimes an hour or 30-minute meeting doesn't allow the time to do that.
Absolutely. The pre-educating point that Kathy mentioned, I think that's what you're echoing as well. I mean, Mrunal, are there your thoughts as well in terms of how do you encourage?
I think technology is helping us overcome those boundaries. So if you think about you have different personalities, and that's what diversity is all about, right? You have folks that are vocal, you have folks that are thought leaders, but they're quiet. So what we've used and what a lot of large companies use is blogging capabilities, right? Where we can have a blog, we can have a Confluence page, and people and team members can leave comments. And that has helped us a lot, where you could open up a topic and post the topic to the entire team, and you'll be surprised how much people are comfortable with a keyboard versus being vocal. And that allows for free flow of ideas. And what's nice there is in a room setting, you will always look around and say, is that senior analyst going to talk about something that I should not be talking about, or am I going to contradict somebody? Well, if you're on a blog on a keyboard, you feel a lot more empowered, and that's what we're using to overcome these barriers.
Awesome. Technology to the rescue once again.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Never lets us down. Good. I know, it's been wonderful talking to all of you. I just realized we are just 45 minutes into the session, and we just have 15 more minutes to go. Changing a little bit of course here in terms of, some of the unique challenges that you have faced within your careers. And how did you face them? How did you manage it? Wanted to hear your thoughts, opinion, something unique that you might have experienced, which you want to share with the viewers. Mrunal, you want to go first on this one?
Sure. Something that was relatively recent. So, 2017, we had a couple of family challenges overseas back in India, where I came from. And, a traditional model is, well, I can work remotely, I'll manage things, and move forward with that model. I ended up taking a different approach by talking to some of my mentors. And I said, listen, if I attempt to do this remotely, I'm not giving 100% to my family challenges overseas while I'm there, and I'm not giving 100% to my work either. So that's where, I had a very clean and crisp conversation with my manager, took time off. My team members stepped up and delivered, working with my manager. And once things stabilized for me personally, I was back at work after 4 months. So I think it's important that we as leaders accommodate our organization's unique challenges. COVID has also taught us that, right? Suddenly, one fine day last year, everybody said schools are closed. You have to have kids, with remote schooling, right?
Yep.
So all of our employees were facing challenges. Managers had to ensure that they were empathetic. So I think those are scenarios, and that I think have allowed us to mature as leaders, and also allow for a lot more flexibility along the way.
Good. Wonderful thoughts there, Mrunal. Kathy, in terms of what challenges that you might have faced and what did you do to overcome them?
Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier when you and I first met, it's not uncommon that I was dropped in the middle of something that I had no idea what I was doing, just go make it happen. And I find that that's happened kind of repeatedly in my career. And for me, it's being able to find the folks that are like, in the situation where you and I met, it was finding the procurement person that like had done this before, and hey, could I learn from you? And when I had to create a vendor management office at Shire, it was looking for potentially the external partners that had that experience, so that I could learn from them and then evolve that and make it my own and best for the company. So I think taking each of those unique challenges and having the confidence to look back at my career and also look externally to find where I can get help, trusted help, has been critically important.
To overcome that, the newness of what you were doing, Kathy, was there, how did you gain the grit and the determination to overcome it?
Part of it is, and you know me, that I'm a very detail-oriented person. So for me, I throw myself into it then. Like I learn everything about it that I could learn. I have data, I have charts, I have spreadsheets. So I kind of turn everything
into the weeds. Got into the weeds and kind of figured out all the nuts and the bolts. Spend a lot of time on learning. Is that the way to put it?
Yeah, and I've actually picked roles in my career that have required, even as I've become more senior in my career, the roles that I pick still require me to roll up my sleeves and get into the details, which I love. So I think keeping the passion about what you do and you're excited about also helps whether you have those challenges.
Good. Thanks for that, Kathy. Nicole, any comments from your side? Challenges that you faced?
Sure. Yeah, I wouldn't say that challenges are unique. I think they're very similar to what others have said. But for me, it's been taking on additional areas and having to learn new businesses, kind of almost like Kathy said, being airdropped. So it's exciting because you're learning something new, but it can be a big challenge because you're learning something new and you're still trying to keep up with everything else that you were doing. So that's just an ongoing challenge I think that most people face as they grow in their career and in business. But to just kind of keep moving forward, it's recognizing that you're not going to know everything about everything, and it's okay that you're coming up to speed and ask for help when you need it. So that's how I've been able to address those challenges.
Good. So again, what I'm seeing is, the common themes that reach out if you need to, immerse yourself in the problem that you're trying to solve, get into the details, and if you put your mind to it, nothing is impossible. I think that's the mindset I see, the winner's mindset I see across all the three of you. Am I summarizing it right here, Nicole?
I think you are.
Good.
Absolutely.
Good. Now that we have just 10 minutes left, I just wanted to kind of give you an opportunity. I think there's this very famous saying, right? If you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go together. So who are those people within your careers who have helped you get to where you are? Family, friends, mentors. Talk to us a little bit about that. Kathy, you want to go first on this one?
Sure. Yeah. And I think part of, I mentioned earlier, a lesson learned was about network. And that was an aha moment I had as well at Shire. We had a lean in circle. So it was a group of 12 women that came together monthly to tackle tough topics like unconscious bias, women at work, bullying at work, those types of things. And, I when I left Shire, I actually got a pocket watch from them that had our picture in it, and I carried it with me on every interview that I went on. So, that's they were in my pocket. They were right beside me, supporting me. So, I think 20 years ago, I would have been like, who needs that? And, now I think about what would Cheryl say? What would Kareen say? How would they support me? How would they help me in that situation, even though they're not down the hall from me anymore in an office?
It's what you're talking about. I mean, the theme, the word I often see repeated is you need to have a personal board of directors and that's your personal board of directors. That's what I see has happened.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Nicole, about you? Want to share your thoughts?
I'm just going to say you took my personal board of directors thought, but what I will say is, in my time, their support comes from all over the place. I've had, in some cases, really great leaders who have shown me the right way to do things and inspired me to want to do better. I have family members who are supporting the kind of sometimes craziness that comes if I'm still on calls or meetings, at late hours, and somebody else is in there cooking dinner for me because I didn't have a chance to take a break. So that kind of support. But I would say that the most support, at least from a business perspective, is I do keep a close set of what I'll call that advisor group, people that I can just call and say, hey, I want to talk about this. And the same for them. They can call me and say, hey, I want to talk about this. And we can kind of just share information. And whether it's them just listening or whether they're advising, it's just a good group of people to have. So I do have a core group of people that, I can call on, and that's very helpful.
Nicole, if I may ask you, this core group of people, are they work people, outside work? What's the constitution of your board of directors?
Some are work and some are outside work. So it's a little bit of both.
Good. Mrunal, what about you?
A similar concept as the board of directors. Maybe I'll use a different terms. I have a satellite of mentors and life coaches, and I call them life coaches only because it's not about work career all the time. It's also about having that energy both from a personal side and from a work side to propel as a professional, right? So that's why I say it's a satellite of I would call it guardian angels who always are there and available to you to call, to bounce off ideas, to have conversations, and sometimes just celebrate, right? What's important is also celebration. So it's all of that together.
Absolutely. So I'll ask you this, what I asked Nicole as well. Who are the members of your board of directors?
Maybe I'll give a couple. One very important member is my cousin, who has believed in me from a very early age. Right, he's helped me with my first business when I started. I had my little small business. He had confidence in me that he got me my first contract. My current boss, who always helps me see the glass half full. And I have a key business partners at J&J, who also I can literally call, text him saying, hey, do you have 10 minutes? Wanted to bounce off this idea. And he gives me a completely different perspective. And then when you look back and hear his perspective and absorb it, you realize, wow, I didn't think about that. So, these are some of the folks that make me successful through my career.
Great thoughts. The personal board of directors and the satellite guardian angels, I think that's the good way to put the team of way to call the team of cheerleaders who will kind of egg you on, who will kind of hold your hand when things are not going great. Good. Great points. Great thoughts that we have shared on this topic. And I know we just have 5 minutes to go. Wanted to hear from you any closing thoughts in terms of whatever you heard. Anything that you want to share with your viewers. If you were to give one single advice to the viewers out there in terms of what has made you successful and what is that, what you want to communicate, one idea that you want to communicate to the viewers, what would that be? I'll give you 30 seconds to think about it, and then we can go with that. Mrunal, I'll request you to go first.
Sure. Maybe one recommendation that I can give is the way I look at career progression is you need to have three elements, sort of the three spices to make it successful. I call it the PI model. It's a model that's out there. You can Google it. And PI stands for performance, image, and exposure. And a lot of technical folks focus a lot on performance, and they don't give time on image and exposure. And we talked about networking. We talked about all those aspects. And it's important that early in your career, give time to image and exposure, because if your stakeholders don't know who you are, your performance won't matter, right? Because you can keep on doing what you are in your corner and nobody's going to pay attention. So look up the PI model, spend some time with image and exposure. That'll go a long way.
That's a great point there, Mrunal. Again, I will definitely look it up. I've been taking notes all along. Nicole, let me pass the baton to you.
So the advice I would give is do things that make you uncomfortable. Take those risks. Don't be afraid of a challenge, or if you don't know, you can learn. Skills can be learned, but don't miss out on an opportunity because you were afraid to take on a challenge.
Thank you, Nicole. Kathy?
Mine might be a little unconventional, but it's a bit of like, you can't have your cake and eat it too, and you have to be okay with that. So, I think maybe I'm not. I've at Veeva, I love the work I'm doing. I'm maybe not the level that I used to be, but I'm also getting a lot more flexibility to be home with my son, and that's okay. And like allowing yourself time, Mrunal, you said it with the 4 months off, like that's okay. You're
right.
allowed to do those things.
Understood. Awesome. Thanks a lot for that, Kathy. Again, I mean, Mrunal, your 3-PI model, I'm definitely going to look that up. And Nicole, what you talked about, being uncomfortable, I mean, embracing change, I think that's maybe the other way to put it. Seeing how we can get ourselves, and that will kind of open up the avenues for learning as well. And the unconventional thought, I mean, in terms, Kathy, what you mentioned about, I mean, it's okay to do some things because, I mean, you have to, end of the day, drive that balance within what you're doing at work and what you're doing in outside of work. So brilliant thoughts. Again, enjoyed this conversation with all of you. I know I can go on and on with the three of you forever, but again, enjoy the conversation and really thank you for the time. I know it's not easy during these times to kind of make time for sessions, but again, thanks a lot for sharing your thoughts and your perspectives on leadership and how we can improve ourselves. Once again, thanks a lot, and be well, be safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.